And welcome back. We're joined live in the studio now by Councillor Leslie Castellano, who's the unopposed candidate for Eureka City Council Ward 1. Ms Castellano, thank you so much for joining us on Redwood News.
Thanks for having me. It's really great to be here and talk about the issues that concern our populace, so I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you being here very much. Now, you've already been on the council, so what experience have you learned from being on the council that may have changed the way you perceive issues?
Sure. Before being elected 4 years ago, I used to attend council meetings and, follow the issues through the lens of what's coming before the council, not necessarily being aware of kind of how much background work goes into, preparing for each council meeting, the amount of research that a council member may or may not do, prior to the council meeting. For myself, I found that I spend a lot of time doing background research for the issues, and that I tend to follow specific issues, more closely, or just realize that there's more context to pursue. For instance, things like, housing, it may only come before a council meeting, once every 3 months, but, like in our lives, right, there's, issues pertaining to housing coming up every day. And so one of the things that I've really learned is how important it is to engage regularly out in the community about those bigger issues so that when they do come up before the council meeting, I'm really prepared.
Now, you've already touched on this, but what do you think are the biggest issues Eureka citizens are facing?
Sure. Well, big guess, housing is definitely one of them. I think that we still have a lot of work to do regarding the unhoused population, or people who don't have housing, which is, only one portion of, the overall issue of housing, which really relates to, workforce housing, people who are unhoused, the need for housing for doctors, as we're drawing people to the community. Economic development, I think you've been covering it on the news, but there are a lot of changes happening in our community from the growth of Cal Poly Humboldt, Nordic aqua farms, broadband, wind. So, we have these huge issues that are coming up in the community that are, changes in how we develop industry. And so those are some things that I've been following quite a bit in the community.
And I assume also you've made those are your top priorities for your next term as well.
They're still there, for sure. They're not going anywhere. Now,
part of the role of being a council member is obviously working collaboratively with your fellow councillors. How have you reached agreement, and how will you reach agreement when you don't agree on the subjects at all?
Sure. I mean, working collaboratively, has its limitations with the Brown Act in that, we don't, talk about issues outside of the meeting as a group. But one of the ways that I find, engaging with community and working collaboratively is to create opportunities for people to dialogue on the issues together. For instance, I hold a weekly housing roundtable where, not necessarily other council members, but where other members of the public come and meet and converse about issues. And I think it's important that we exercise our differences. For sure, we do work together, but also, I think it's rich when we're actually wrestling with the issues there, in person at the meetings. Now,
the pay structure for the council makes it certainly a part-time role. So how do you juggle all the things you have to do in your own life with your council responsibilities?
Sure. Well, long days. It's funny. I spend, probably 20 to 30 hours a week working on council-related business, plus work a full-time job, plus have my own personal business teaching classes that I do in the evenings. So you can ask my husband. He knows that, the days are long, but it's such a privilege to engage with community that I really feel that it's important to give as much as I can to the opportunity while I'm up there.
We haven't got much time left, I'm afraid, Leslie, but where can viewers get more information about you, and anything personal you'd like to share just before we go?
Let's see. Well, I just want to invite people to really engage with politics. We have, some limited opportunities, via a council meeting, but, I've been hosting throughout my term town hall meetings.
We are kind of out of time now, Leslie. I'm really sorry about that. The 5 minutes just flies by,
great.
And we'll be right back after this short break.